and caring and too
Recording is on.
yeah. So no, so the question was, well, like what happened to the left really? But the left got too into their own identity, so they fell foul more to the big program of the 20th century, and that was to fragment us and atomize us, and it. In a lot of ways, it worked better on the left because everybody was fragmented into their different identities, and so they basically got too stuck in their own narrative that was too domesticated and too positive, basically too hopeful and too insular. So that the left is extremely tribal now. So they look at the homogeneity of the right. The right is quite a homogeneous block.
I think that the left is where it is because it's constituted a lot of people that are much more beaten down than the people from the right, and the people from the right sometimes could afford to I was going to say think outside the box and start to be more, there's a social divide too there. We can't ignore it. Like, we know what education does, and from what I know and from what I see, the people around me who are in the left, there's a lot of them who didn't really even have the time to be able to educate themselves into these matters, and the people on the right have got the luxury to have had a background and education that can give them that. So I wouldn't really fustigate the left. I would just say that they've been sleeping and that they need to educate themselves. Basically, that's what I think.
Yeah, no, they've been asleep. Yeah, they've been asleep. Yeah. But yeah, to wake up, you can wake up very quickly. You just basically say, well, it's kind of tall order now that I think about it, but conceptually, you can wake up pretty quick by just getting a nap and getting it. It's fun. Just think of it like a learning experience, just like Roger Hallam was doing with old style, archaic, has been passé street protests, which are fucking need to be put on the rubbish pile of history. That's basically street protests were never much use until you got a pitchfork and really did some damage. But the left needs to get over that mindset and just let the past go and say, all that shit is passé. And so now there's a learning experience, a whole new way of protesting and stuff, and just start, get an app, go on the street corner and say, I'm raising money to put on the stock market to bring down the economy to save the planet. See if the blue head rinse crowd has an interesting conversation, because they won't talk about climate change. But if you talk about, I'm going to wipe out your pension, they might want to have a talk to you outside ASDA. They might go, what do you mean wipe out my pension? And say, that's what we're going to do this week, old madam. Say, you little baby boomers have had your time, and we're going to fuck you in your old age. Tell them that. And you say, why? And say, because of the Arctic. Basically, we're on the last stretch, Granny, and you fucked us. Now we're going to fuck you. So give us $20, and I'm off to the stock market to do you in. And there's an interesting conversation. They'll talk about climate change pretty soon after that. Says, I'm going to put up a big sign. I'm going to Wall Street to wipe out your pension. Talk me out of it. Put that sign on.
They're going to beat you with umbrellas and handbags.
But that's good too. They need to learn to start beating people with handbags. And that's good too. Yeah. There's nothing bad about it. Nothing bad. People need to be radical. So you just have to, it's really getting them out of their complacency. So you don't have to really get too, bent out of shape about what comes next or where we take them to or what we're trying to convince them. It's nothing. Just bump them out of the rut. Doesn't matter which direction, doesn't matter what, If you wake up grandma and she turns into Mussolini, that's okay. You can take it. As long as she doesn't carry on being grandma and saying, well, we must vote responsibly and have a Green New Deal. So you've got to get that narrative to end. Protest at the
Hugh,
government.
I
The
think
government
the
has all the power. It's like, no, they don't. Wall Street has all the power, and we're going to try to take them down this week.
Hugh, I get the impression from reading some of the things, financial commentary that you put up and that others have put up, that most of the people who are involved in this at the moment are not looking beyond. They're not looking beyond their little world, and they think this is a great game that we're going to damage these hedge funds, and kick a few big wigs and or big operators and all the rest of it. And they seem to be oblivious to the fact that you can't do that in a vacuum without affecting the rest of the world. Because it's, everybody's absolutely dependent on the money system. And so there's this kind of a disconnect that they're playing a game and getting completely, absorbed in it and carried away in it. And I don't think they realize the ultimate real world consequence, that they're actually involved in something a lot bigger than they think they are. Think it
Yes,
is.
some people must realize. I highly doubt that they're not people that realize what's going on, but few.
But you're back where what I was thinking, just to sort of bring the conversation back even vaguely to do with the caged chimp, is that, if you do realize that, you're back in that situation where the caged chimp is going to set itself out of the free to find that there's nothing out there for it. That it's you might get out of Auschwitz, but it's a scorched earth everywhere. And again and again, I find that what's left out of every single narrative is the fact that the inevitable death of very large numbers of people, which comes about regardless, whether you do nothing or whether you do everything, it still occurs. So that's an unavoidable thing that has got to be at least known. I'm just sort of, because that particular inconvenient thing is left out of the conversation, it affects everything else. Like even what you were talking about a few minutes ago, about Sophie was talking about the master tradesmen or whatever, they're roaming the country, and all these alternative ways of living, which are going to be seriously compromised by masses of dead, rotting bodies for a start. There's like, it's not as if we bring this system down and then miraculously we're all in little groups helping each other with what's left. I don't know. You got a thought on that?
Okay, you forced me into difficult territory, as you normally do, to the benefit of everybody. Okay, so let's be honest. If they pulled this off and the derivatives markets melted down, a lot of people would die. Now, there are a couple of things to say about this. First of all, is not as many as you think, and not the people that you think. So the way where you see, this is why it's good that these kids don't know what they're doing. They need to play with matches in this, around the dynamite, even though they don't know what dynamite is and they just don't have a clue how much dynamite there is to go off. It's important that they play around with the dynamite and take matches into the magazine. The reason is that if the whole thing blows and the economy stops dead, we have this narrative of privileged liberals that we think, oh, what about the brown people and all this stuff? Because we've been told by Oxfam that they're poor brown people. What Oxfam doesn't tell you is, we're the fucking problem for the brown people. It's our economy and all that shit. Oxfam doesn't tell you that because they're raising money. They want money. They're capitalists. So basically, they don't tell you that basically if you want instant relief for the brown people, if you really, really don't want to be racist, fucking end this fucking industrial system now. The first thing that happens in India and Africa and South America and these poorer places, they get relief, instant relief. They will be laughing the day it happens. Now we don't understand that as sport liberals, because that doesn't fit with, we think everybody wants to be us. And so we're being a great act of kindness, giving them our cancer. Because we can't imagine that like these guys are cancer free and cancer isn't wonderful. And so we export our cancer thinking we're being kind, and Oxfam is being brutal to Africa because they're exporting our cancer. But you can't tell that to a liberal that thinks, well, I haven't got cancer. It's like, you are cancer. You're a walking virus. As a liberal Westerner, you're a walking planet gobbling virus. So the first thing that happens is this is getting the virus to attack itself. So basically, well, luckily we're well into the video, and hopefully all the lightweights are already ducked out already. But if you've lasted this long into the video, then basically the first thing to say is, the people that go down with this are not the ones you think. The real villains go down with this. People with white skins, people who live in urban societies, people with carbon footprints about as big as a fucking SUV. Those are the ones that go down. Those are the ones that suffer. Those are the ones that are going to be shooting themselves. What happens in all of this is if you're in the Kalahari or in like the jungles of South America, the first thing that happens is, now, if you're a Piraha person, fucking a trader stops coming up the river with COVID. That's the first net benefit you get as soon as the global economy goes down. The reason why the guys in the Machigang and all these guys in the tribes, basically our last best hope to survive as a species, those guys are they getting these diseases like COVID, and they've been really ravaged by COVID, is because guys are coming up the river to get Brazil nuts to put in your fucking latte at Starbucks. Now, as soon as Starbucks goes bust, that trade will end. It's in essence a kind of a slave trade. And so basically all these guys who, you see, if there are millions of acres all through Africa that have been planted already with rice for the 2021 season, that rice is destined for Beijing, Shanghai, basically Wuhan. They're getting that fucking rice. Soon as the fucking trade stops and all the tankers are furloughed in bloody thing, and they can't find any oil to run the fucking things, and they can't find an economy or market to sell the rice in, guess what? Africans have rice. They have tons of rice in Mombasa. So we have it all upside down. But you don't want to say all of this to people. I mean, how much of a good sell do you think it would be to say to, these kids on Wall Street Bet, say, hey, I know, why don't you go and toast the economic system, and that'll be great for brown people. They'll be like, actually, I was doing this because I wanted to pay off my college debt. So basically, it's good that the guys are so short-sighted, but in general, bloody hell, those revolutions starting.
There's a big lightning behind you.
Yeah, it's like I'm getting close to but so yeah, but so in general in revolutions that's what happens. It's when they make all the movies of all the Bolsheviks getting stormed and basically all these guys attacking the gates of the the Winter Palace and stuff. When they make all those movies, all the extras running around apparently have a degree in fucking Marxist communism, and they all it's like, no, if you've ever seen one of these things, basically 90% of the people running with the herd are just there for the freaking fun. They're just thinking, hey, I wonder if I can get anything out of the palace. It's just they have the basest motives known to man. When I was in South Africa, I almost got tire burned a number of times. And one of them was almost by a bunch of 7-year-olds. I'm talking like millions. Like a lot of the riots that went on in Soweto were little kids. I mean, seriously, little kids, 6 and 7. And I had a very interesting time once. I had a very interesting reason to go to Soweto, but white people didn't go to Soweto. Every moment I was there, basically, my life had been challenged. And I saw them in the riots. And one of the interesting things was I saw these guys, they tore a guy limb from limb in front of me. And he was driving one of those big Coca-Cola trucks. You know, the ones, the old-fashioned ones, they used to have the bottles and this kind of A-frame on the outside of the truck. Huge, you know, Pantechnicon 16-wheeler. And they crowded the truck like ants. And they tore the driver, a black guy, they tore him out of the cab, and they just tore him apart. Now, the thing was, they weren't doing it for Uhuru or Black Liberation or the ANC or anything. They were doing it because they fucking were getting the cokes on the back. So they all then went and piled on the cokes, and they all were pleased as punch because they all got crates of cokes and stuff. But that's how it is in most revolutions. Is the revolutionaries set up the spirit of resistance, and they set up the justification and the mindset. They give them the people the story so that they can go and do it. But people generally have pretty base motives. So you've got to expect people to, the vast majority of people who are going into something like Wall Street Bets, they're going in there thinking, oh, I'm going to get a Maserati. They're going to YOLO and lose all their money. And yeah, it's a little IQ test for them, but it doesn't really matter. They cannon fodder for anybody, right? If you're a sheep, you're cannon fodder, and you can be cannon fodder for the revolutionaries, or you can be cannon fodder for the establishment. But either way, you're fucking cannon fodder, dudes. I'm sorry if you are, you know, if you're that stupid and you basically haven't questioned the system and you just gone through it, you're cannon fodder. So it's just you got to live up to your destiny as pig fat, and so. Yeah, it's basically you're going to get fried on the stock market, and but if you don't do it, if you don't rebel, they're going to get fried anyway. They're going to get fried by the system as soon as the economy melts down. They're going to be standing in bread lines, so they're screwed one way or another. It's better that they get there, getting a better result, and the better result is they bring down part of the system with their demise. It's kind of like, you know, if they're herding people into the gas chambers at Auschwitz. It's better that basically they, you know, if they have to die, it's better die running at the machine guns or trying to storm the gates to get out of Auschwitz than it is going compliantly with the SS towards the gas chamber. So if you are a sheep and you are a caged chimp, your destiny is to die. And it's better to have somebody manipulate them to do a death that, you know, works against the system. So it's very harsh, but as usual, Gary, you surfaced the truth, and I think this truth should be said for anybody that's bothered to listen this far into the video.
I was just thinking while you were saying that you know, the more you look at the trajectory that we're on, it seems to basically whatever outcomes that there are going to be. They're going to come about in unintended. Like, I mean, we'll just take in the Wall Street Bets people. They're not intending the result that they're going to get. They think they're getting as you just said, you know, their own personal thing, perhaps not realizing the greater consequences. And then you've got the opportunistic people in revolutions that you're just talking about, like in South Africa, where there's no idealism. They just don't give a fuck about any of that. But the whole thing is still being pushed ahead without the kind of by default. You know, that a certain atmosphere has been set up, a certain little bit of a push has been given to it by people who might know what the aim is, but then it's taken over by others who actually don't know anything or care anything about the bigger picture. And so I mean, you know, does it come down to the fact that that's basically the way, that's basically the only way it's going to come off anyway, because it's the only way you're going to get sufficient numbers, momentum, interest, activity. You know, you're just not going to get it by trying to organize around one idea.
It's ludicrous to assume that you're going to educate all these people, change them out of their conditioning. They're basically deprogramming them from the system they've been in their whole lives. Just explain to them their dream isn't going to happen, do the psychology, the grief, and the therapy, and then say, okay, now you're ready for revolution. It's just impossible. Where would you get the resources and time to even do such a thing? But you see, don't forget though that it might be wrong in detail. Can you still hear me? The rain is so damn hard. So it might be wrong in detail, but it is still theater, and in some level it's correct. So let me give you an example. If you take like QAnon, and then people say, oh, this QAnon is a conspiracy and it's all... so I can't hear anybody, but can you hear me? So
yeah.
QAnon and stuff, and then everybody goes like, oh, well, QAnon's a conspiracy and it's dangerous because these guys have rocks in their head, and basically the elites are not Satan worshipping baby eaters and stuff. You say, well, yeah, I guess they're probably not Satan worshipping baby eaters, but that's the metaphor and the language you use for profoundly evil people. So you're a real dipshit if you think, well, we've got to debunk this and prove to people that they have a delusion and deprogram them, make them see that these are not really baby-eating Satanists. You say, no, it's a metaphor. It's saying just imagine a profoundly evil person. You say, well, why are they profoundly evil? Well, let me explain to you how economics works. And it's like, where do you go from there? You're going to explain economics to your fucking dog? Basically, you can't explain astrophysics to a poodle, so you just give it in the language a poodle understands. And it's not a lie. These people are fucking psychopathic and evil. So it's really the people that are saying, well, you've got to be rational and you've got to explain to them that they're not baby-eating Satanists. No, you're the one with the problem. You're the fucking idiot. Because you don't see that in essence, it is that way. They're not literally baby-eating Satanists, but they are profoundly evil people, far more evil than you in your normie world and with your normality bias can guess. You do not understand how psychopathic they are, how evil they are. You think Obama's a nice guy and Boris Johnson is the salt of the earth, and you'll vote for Biden because he's your nice old pops. It's like, they're psychopaths, fucking dangerous, lethal fucking psychopaths. But you don't realize that. So the right-wing dipshits that you think have rocks in their head, they're actually smarter than you, because they've got it, specifically, they've got it wrong, Satan eating baby, maybe not, but in terms of how evil they are, equal, yes, they are. They got that right, and you got it wrong. So it's the intellectuals that are doofuses, right? So it's not wrong to come up with these stories. And anyway, I must say one more thing, and that in terms of are there hidden actors, you fucking bet. This is a high stakes game. If you don't see that, like China and Russia and stuff is going to be in this, they are going to be. It's a fucking war. I mean, I'm talking war, full scale with state actors. Huge amounts of money is going to flow. So basically, we're going to see the interesting part of this. You can't say what the outcome is, but what you're going to see is how the forces are arrayed. Basically, you're going to see that there are a lot of people that were faking it, and there are a lot of forces, undercurrents that you never knew that were a lot stronger, and some of them could be state actors. So, yeah, I wouldn't think that Wall Street Bets was started by China, but if you think China and Russia and Iran and stuff is not going to be getting in on this week, and you know how many actors are standing in the wings just to profit from a big move in silver? This is a big deal. Big deal. If you have a look at, I'm expecting something like Soros. Soros made his fortune in about 6 hours, shorting the pound. And Norman Lamont, you remember that day?
Yeah,
I remember that day very well. And I'm thinking that I'm really hoping but their fortune's going to move. Yeah.
So for the same reasons that the right movements are talking about Satan, evil baby eating people, supporting something like Wall Street Bets is the same kind of thing. They don't get it all, but they've got something right. They're getting to the beast.
Yeah,
but they're not using the same language, but they in fact So it's worth supporting them.
Yeah, they're using to the limits of their imagination. So they know that Wall Street is rigged, but it's too complex for them to really understand how it works. But they can see basically that the hedge funds are evil and the hedge funds are raking it off, and basically and so they're aiming at the hedge funds and thinking we're going to sort them out because they're evil.
You know that
The whole thing is evil from head to toe, but they don't know that. So just
do you know that sub is getting into the hundreds of millions people visiting the sub at the moment as we speak.
What, hundreds of millions?
Yeah, people are looking. There've been some statistics that have come out. It's gone completely worldwide. People are looking at it. They're not joined. I think they have 6 million people on the sub. But yeah, you're talking about.
It's going to be big. Oh, I'm going to enjoy this so much.
Yeah, you'd be better than me at checking those statistics. I just got it secondhand from you.
I've been hearing lots of rumors. I've been hearing physical silver is unobtainable today.
Yeah, I know. Okay.
I hope you got lots of silver coins. But basically, I don't want to do Cassandra, but I did fucking tell you people that to get gold. So I told everybody to get gold and silver coins.
I got some silver. Yeah.
Good. And just hold
All right.
on to your life.
Realistically, though, you know, you're supposing that shit hits the fan in a big way, the economy goes down, everything goes down, and you've survived somehow, and you're in a little community, but you want to trade, and you've got your bit of silver, might be a coin. Aren't you just going to be up against practical everyday problems? If the person you're trying to trade it with is not going to believe that it's real silver, and he's not going to have any way to verify that for himself. Because say, no, I won't trade your silver or your gold. If you've got some potatoes, I'll trade them. So you're going to get these people.
No, you don't think like that. So first of all, it won't collapse in that way. I don't expect it to collapse in that way. So what's most likely to happen is that it's an educational system, and you're going to see some of the internals of the system and see how rigged it is. So what's going to most likely happen is they're going to play foul, and so what's going to happen is circuit breakers are going to go most likely. They're going to halt trading. They're going to intervene with like tons of silver is going to come on the market from unknown sources, and basically you're going to see masses of manipulation. So what I would expect is at the end of the week, the public is outraged by just how they're going to be forced to make a foul move. They're going to have to do a foul play. So basically, the public is going to be furious at the end because they're going to want to give them a red card. And so if you think it's not quite like 2008, right? 2008, everybody is bust. So we've had the bust. Now we just had papering over the cracks. They never got back on their feet or anything. So we're not going to see a bust. It's not 2008. It's not. They're not going to get the 5 banks round a table and say you must have an injection of cash. This is where everybody gets to see behind the curtain. The average man gets to see behind the curtain. So it's far more likely the ramifications of this is people, pitchforks on the street and demonstrations. Much more. Riots like in Amsterdam and Paris, because just people are just cannot hide that the game is thoroughly rigged. And so really what people, the mainstream guys are going to realize now there's a deep state and there's a big conspiracy, and they won't be able to deny it anymore. And I think that's more likely the outcome. I'm not thinking I'll be trading potatoes for silver. So silver and stuff. If you have silver and gold coins, if you go back to Weimar Republic and stuff like that, it doesn't go Mad Maxy. It's basically people that don't have food are very docile. Right? They try to stop a bred right up to a certain limit, but after a while, it's actually in the state's favor to starve people, because they get very docile. No, if you haven't eaten for a week, I'm telling you, you don't feel very much like rioting on the street. So what, you know, up to a point, they want to stop anger and riots and everything, if in those kind of situations of deprivation. But if you push it after a little while, they can get people off the streets by getting them. You get sick and you get miserable if you're starving. So
yeah,
so,
I mean,
yeah.
sorry, if anything, you're going to be going down the pawnbroker, you're going to be handing in your golden silver to get fiat currency.
Yeah.
So you can go and buy some bread or whatever. It's a very common trope to think that you would, and like what you were saying, Gary, that you would end up trying to trade gold or silver for a sheep or a cow. I mean, that's just that's not going to happen these days. I mean, we're beyond medieval times where you might have had your sack of gold or silver, but it's still a commodity. It's money, it's real money, but it's I mean,
but you see, you trade with your equals, right? You trade with your equals. You don't trade down. If you had silver, you wouldn't take it out on a street corner to trade with some guy, because you trade basically if everybody segregates in layers, so it becomes like South Africa. And if you got loads of money, you'll be in the set that has gold coins and stuff. You know what I mean? And you will trade. You basically isolate yourself and hide because you don't want people to know that you got resources. But everybody has little hidey holes and little class divisions and little places where they hang out. So, you know, basically, okay, take me for an example then. But I'm in a place where everybody's got loads of options, loads of resources, loads of shit. And then basically you just, you know, you have tokens to play with in that environment. You don't get Mad Maxi and go and trade silver for potatoes. Make sense? Yeah, unfortunately, Hollywood has done such a lot of evil. They've done decades and decades of filling our heads in with cement. And it's just, there's so many Hollywood tropes that will serve us ill because people just don't understand how these things work, how collapses work and stuff. You know.
Yeah, you get this kind of magical thinking about the way you can operate.
Mad Max has done so much evil. That one movie has done such a disservice to the world because it's possible narrative.
That guy who's done it, that actor, and the background is really, really religious in a way. I mean, it's just like, look what's going to happen. Men is bad. People can't cooperate. It's a horrible example. You're absolutely right. It's been absolutely.
It comes out of some, like you said.
Yeah, but I mean, the trouble is, though,
millenarianism. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking though that's kind of predisposing people to act that out and actually make it become the way they will behave. They will behave that way because they think.
Not really. No, they don't do that. No, it's just false human psychology. It's just a 12-year-old's view of human psychology. Whoever made that movie is a dick. If you want to know about collapses, read Rebecca Solnit and stuff like that. It's like complete opposite. It's actually quite good. It's actually quite a fun time to be in. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you have spoken about
it. Hard, but it'll easily be the best time of your life. You know, easily be the best time of your life.
Who was the author?
Rebecca Solnit. Paradise Made in Hell was a book she wrote about how people really behave in these situations. And basically the lesson from her is very loud and clear, is get rid of the state. Get rid of the state. Get rid of the police. Defund the police. Get rid of the army. Get rid of those bastards. They are your problem. They are your biggest problem. It's not Mad Max that's the problem. It's the security forces. It's the guys that are kind of keep order and control. Those guys are the enemy. Those guys will cause you the pain, the grief. Those guys will cause the cholera. Those guys will redistribute the wealth. Those guys will cause the shootings. It's those guys, those fucking ACABs. Get them. Every single one of them. Remove them. They are your biggest problem. Those guys don't have any mercy on those cunts, because those cunts are, if you want to know what those cunts are going to do, you got to go and see a flak tower in Berlin. What the SS guys, trying to keep order and knowing that they were doomed, they basically pushed 40,000 people into a single flak tower. Civilians, women and children. And in essence, what they were saying was, we're going to die, so you fucking going to die too. You don't get off this lightly. We fucking fought on the Eastern Front, and we're pissed, and so we don't care. You women and children, you suffer our fate. You don't get off. That's what the SS were doing. So they put 40,000 people into these flak towers. Those flak towers were hammered by Russian tanks for days, and they had concrete splintering off the walls at them. And if anybody tried to escape, the SS shot them. Now, the SS were their protectors. Don't forget it. Those little boys in blue and the nice little Bobby in the street, he's the fucking SS guy that's herding you into that flak tower. Don't forget it. Those are the guys that you really got to worry about. Eliminate them. Eliminate.
Yeah, I kind of worry about that in countries like here, where it's where the only people with guns are the police and the military. Like basically,
go and have a look at
citizenry.
Sarajevo. Go have a look at Sarajevo. Go and have a look at those militias. Go and have a look at the guys that wound up in The Hague for war crimes.
Yeah,
they are the military. They're the police. Those are the guys that have the mentality to do that. They're mainly male. They're heavily armed, and they have a mindset that's fucking toxic. Those guys, basically, as soon as you can eliminate those guys, you've eliminated at least 50% of your problem. But if you see those guys rounding up people, trying to keep control, those guys do the mass killings. Those are the guys. Those are the guys that hold people with guns and call, the brutal things where they're getting fathers to call their sons out of the forest, and then they're going to mow them both down, and that's what happens. But those are the military. Those are the guys that everybody, all the liberals, vote for, saying we need more police, we need more protection. You don't know what you're doing. Those guys are going to be your biggest problem coming up in collapse. Everybody, basically, we're in a protection racket, and those guys are on the wrong side of our protection. They're not there to protect us. It says every black and white in America says on the door to protect and serve. It's basically to protect property rights and to serve the rich. That's all they're there for. They're security guards for the rich. They are not your friends, not your friends. But unfortunately, women scared of getting raped, and they think they was like, it's the statistics don't bear it up. The police don't protect women, and they certainly don't protect them from rape. So just you got to educate people on that score that the police are not your friends. But think how far we have to go. We've got to go from XR going, please, we love you. To say like, oh, you have to go from there all the way to here to know that these guys.
And it's a long, long way. It feels bad because everybody's being docile even more now, particularly with all the lockdowns. It's worrying because the police are becoming more and more militarized.
Well, it's better. You see, there's a problem in the UK, and that's that you've done community policing, and all the bobbies are so nice. And if you want to know the time, ask a policeman, and you've got a very nice view of the cops. So the more militarized and the bigger the gulf becomes between them and the public, the closer they'll get to be more like the IRA and start to see them as the enemy, and that's a good place to get to.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, I think there's more and more people that are aware that the police. I think there is still that romantic view. You're right, but I think there's more and more people, especially now, it's been more exposed with the way that we're just losing the rights that were built up over years. That the police were supposed to originally protect us, but as you say, they don't anymore. I think more people are more aware that they don't patrol. They just run around in cars, answering crime, but it's that they see the public more as a threat. You can see it in the way they act. They don't, and that's worrying. So I think they're not what they were, and I think more and more people are realizing that. But it's still a tiny proportion. Maybe that.
Yeah, so there's a difference. So those are beat cops. So what happens is, with Maggie Thatcher, then with the miners, right? So the miners didn't have any romantic view about the police because they had to face guys who had all the. They weren't policemen; they were just thugs. A lot of the guys were on remand, taken out of prisons. They were basically doing what the SS did, and basically get hardened criminals and use them to control the people. And Maggie Thatcher got rent cops for the day with basically hoods. They had no insignia. They just stuffed them into a uniform that didn't fit them, and they just took billy clubs on the miners. So we will get to that stage, and then the public will completely hear the romantic views of the police. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was a long time ago. You're right. I didn't know that, but it doesn't surprise me. But that it happened more recently with the protests, the lockdown protests back in the autumn, when they were going up to London, and a lot of people said, former policemen on forums, on alternative media channels, on YouTube, said they were not. Those guys were not from youth police. It's like they were shipped in guys that were dressed up. A lot of former policemen were saying they did not react the way our police. They were there to provoke, to get a reaction from men. So they deliberately attacked women, and then they got a reaction from the men in the crowd. And there was footage of people in the crowd saying, "No, look what they're doing." And luckily there was former special forces and former military people who were civilians in the crowd who realized what was going on and said, "No, sit down, don't react," and tried to. So yeah, I fully believe that they deliberately tried to provoke reaction.
Yeah, no, I remember that what you're talking about. Actually, I did read about it. But the tactics have to evolve, and one of the reasons why they have to get off the streets is because they're not savvy enough. To basically, in South Africa, it took a long time and a lot of bloodshed to get savvy. So you can take command of the streets, but only when you're much more sophisticated. The real reason to get off the streets is that the establishment owns them. They have all the weaponry. They have in store they have tremendous arsenals of weapons that I've seen that go from basically microwave rays and stuff, and sound, and there's all sorts of non-lethal weapons, a whole array of them that are still they haven't brought out. They will bring out at some stage. But basically what I'm saying is the tactics, their training, and their equipment is vastly outnumbers the average dickhead that gets on the street. So you just basically outmatched on the street. So that's the real reason to get off is they own the streets. And then with surveillance and backtracking, it's just you have to cede that ground to them. And the good thing is they've invested so much in crowd control and street and that kind of unrest, is that they completely neglected all the where the real battle is going to be fought, like online and with the gaming community. This battle is going to be fought from people's couches. So you doubly don't want to get down on the street because of that. But yeah, those guys that they employ, they're guys overseas, they're ex-military, they're all these professional soldiers and mercenaries. And all those guys at some stage get brought into the fold, and those guys, they're brutal. If you see like an FBI interrogation video now, they'll tell you how you've got to be nice and put everybody at ease. And it's like, yeah, that's this stage of it. But if paramilitaries are involved and you get taken by a mercenary, those guys will chop your legs off to get information. You'll be lucky to escape with your balls from those guys. That's no longer, waterboarding and shit like that. So yeah. Anyway, that's the reason to get off the street, is you're outmatched. Yeah. And stuff like Roger Hallam, and we all get arrested and fill up the jails, and it's like, dudes, Gandhi was buried in India fucking 60, 70 years ago. That era is gone. You're talking about ancient history. You're talking about bows and arrows and Arthur and shit that just doesn't apply anymore. This is another era. Just forget it, dudes. Forget it. And that maybe end on that one. I suppose we better end that right there.
It's enough misery for one night.
Yeah, well, it turned into, but well, hopefully the week is it's a good week. It's an exciting week. Hopefully, we'll get to see. I'm hoping we get to see under the covers, and everybody gets to see under the covers this week.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Hugh. Bye, everyone. Yeah.
Bye.
Take care,
Okay.
everyone.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.